Section 2 of Shadowland, September 1919. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Stunning. Shadowland, September 1919. By Various. The Marionette, the Movie of the Past. By Jameson, Sevvell. Recent efforts to revive interest in the once popular marionettes, efforts which seem to have been made throughout the world during the past 2 or 3 years, bring out the fact that the puppet show was the motion picture of the past. Indeed, marionette entertainments were called motions in the Middle Ages, and the puppet manipulators termed motion makers. Marionettes, tiny puppets moved by strings, unquestionably presaged the motion picture. They were the universal entertainment of all classes. Did not Jeremy Collier call Punch the Don Juan of the people? They were, at best, a crude reproduction of life, but there was something at once comic and grotesque, beautiful and adroit about them. And, above all else, they made, just as the motion picture of today makes, an appeal to the imagination of humanity. They stirred dimly thought dreams, awakened the dull brains of the plodding serf, entertained the alert. About the marionette show there was an atmosphere of the fairy, an illusion of unreality, of a fanciful world apart. And all this went straight to the child heart of the races now long dead, just as the photoplay reaches direct to the folk of our day. During the past theatrical season, Tony Sarg, the artist, presented a season of his marionettes at the Punch and Judy Theater in New York. Mr. Sarg, whose career has been linked with the renaissance of the marionette for years, each season gives a puppet season in New York. This year, Mr. Sarg presented an adaptation of Thackeray's The Rose and the Ring, in a prologue and 3 acts of 8 scenes. There were 16 players, including the wicked King Padea's flirtatious horse, and a lion of no mean, or rather, a decidedly mean, ferocity. That Mr. Sarg's tiny marionettes were able to play for some weeks on Broadway is an interesting commentary on the quaint hold the puppet still has upon humanity. But before discussing the renaissance of the marionette, it is interesting to trace its remarkable history. Centuries-distant historians will be tracing the motion picture probably in much the same way, with one difference. The photoplay will never wane, unless it is before some new device of as yet unfathomed beauty in reflecting the moods of life. The marionette is of distinguished lineage. It amused the ancient Egyptians o' night along the winding Nile, for figures with movable limbs have been found in the tombs of the land of Pharaoh and among the remains of Etruria. The marionette thrived in ancient Greece and thence moved on to Rome. It has been popular for centuries in India, China, and the Far East. Indeed, it may have had its earliest development in India. It is interesting to note that the Sanskrit equivalent of stage manager is Sutradhara, or thread holder. All through Turkey and Mohammedan countries, the puppet show has held sway for ages. In distant Java, it is so popular that women dress as puppets and imitate the movements of the mannequins in silent plays. In Western Europe, the real home of the marionette has been in Italy. It is very likely that it was handed down from the golden days when Rome was mistress of the world. For centuries it developed in Naples, Milan, Rome, and through all the remote provinces. The marionette reached Germany in the 12th century. It was introduced in France by Pierre, sometimes called Jean, Brioche, during the reign of Louis XIV at the Pont Neuf in Paris, where he extracted teeth between performances, and it swept on England in the 17th century. America saw its first marionette shows on the east side of New York, these crude theaters being brought over by Italian immigrants. The marionette theater was used by the Christian Church throughout Europe in the Middle Ages to further the cause of religion. Here, history shows that the Church first attacked the puppet show and then adopted it to its own use, just as the churches of yesterday flayed the photoplay and today are extensively using it. Marionette performances, like the morality dramas of the time, were based upon biblical episodes such as the prodigal son and Jonah and the whale, and upon the lives of the saints. A pamphlet of 1641 still exists to relate. Here a knave in a fool's coat, with a trumpet sounding to a drum beating, invites you to see his puppets. Here a rogue, like a wild woodman, or in an antic shape like an incubus, desires your company to view his motion. Motion being the term then applied to the puppet entertainment. In 1575, Italian impresarios having brought the marionette theatre to England, the Lord Mayor of London issued an order authorizing Italian marionettes to settle in this city and to carry on their strange motions, as in the past and from time immemorial. In 1667, Pepys, in his famous diary, recorded seeing a puppet show. The plays of that day ranged from The Sorrows of Griselda and Dick Whittington to Robin Hood and The Vagaries of Merry Andrew. In 1709, the Tatler gave an article on Powell's noted marionette show, and in 1711, the Spectator reviewed the performance of one Pinkethman, a motion maker whose entertainment presented the divinities of Olympus in action. Pinkethman's name is linked strongly with the British development of the puppet, although he had a strong rival in Crawley, whose show revealed the old creation of the world with addition of Noah's flood. This was particularly dazzling, owing to the fact that Crawley employed real fountains. His advertisement and pamphlets of the day glowingly describe a scene with Noah and his family coming out of the ark, with all the animals 2 by 2 and all the fowls of the air seen in prospect sitting upon trees. Likewise over the ark is the sun rising in a gorgeous manner, moreover a multitude of angels in a double rank. Thus Crawley hit upon the first screen sunset fade out, although he used the sun in reverse form. The marionette theatre kept on developing. From sacred things, the puppets began dancing jigs, sarabands, and country dances, aside from presenting the antics of Squire Punch. The great vogue of the marionette theatre in Britain was due to the popularity of Punch, and in France to a similar character called Guignol, but just as popular. The Punch and Judy show entertained England for centuries. Punch is an abbreviation of the Italian Punchinello, in turn derived from a word meaning clown, buffoon, or puppet, which is, of course, another angle upon the part Italy played in the evolution of the marionette. Historians profess to believe that Punch dates back to the burlesque actors of old Rome. For a portrait bronze of the famous Roman clowns, Maccus is a duplicate of the comic physiognomy of Punch, hooked nose, nutcracker chin, and all. Towards the end of the 18th century, Flocktons presented 500 figures at work at various trades. Brown's Theatre and Arts, about 1830, revealed the Battle of Trafalgar, Napoleon's army crossing the Alps, and the Marble Palace of St. Petersburg. Literary men of all ages have been fascinated by the marionette, from Ben Jonson, Swift, George Sand, Goethe, and Lessing, down to Maurice Maeterlinck. Voltaire enjoyed the puppet show and used to invite marionette entertainers to his house in Cirey. The marionette theater was a hobby with Goethe, who loved the puppet show all his life. Goethe indeed acknowledges a remarkable indebtedness to the puppet entertainment in that one of the shows suggested Faust to him. Joseph Haydn composed for the marionettes. During the Middle Ages, the marionette approached the photoplay closest when shadow entertainments were given, the shadows of the moving puppets being cast upon a screen. Here, indeed, was the first photoplay, and it was decidedly popular. The marionette theater enjoyed remarkable waves of favor. In 1642, the wave of Puritanism through England caused all theaters, except those showing marionettes, to be closed. Thus, the puppet became the one of reigning vogue in once merry England. There was a remarkable revival of interest in France between 1888 and 1891, when Henri Signoret produced in marionette form such classics as Aristophanes's The Birds and Shakespeare's The Tempest. In Munich, a municipal theater took up the work and carried it on until the outbreak of the World War. Here the puppets did the plays of Maeterlinck, the comedies of Schnitzler, and the folk plays of Hans Sachs. Every modern device of stagecraft was utilized, even to a miniature revolving stage. Winthrop Ahmes and Clayton Hamilton had perfected plans to bring the Munich marionettes to America in 1914, when the war swept the continent. Probably the Munich theater is now a mere memory. Active interest in the marionette has cropped up here and there in America. Tony Sarg brought his puppets with him from London. Aside from Mr. Sarg, some excellent marionette productions have been staged at the Chicago Little Theater by Maurice Brown. Mr. Sarg first took up the marionette idea when he had his studio in London in the old curiosity shop of Little Nell and Charles Dickens. Here he began giving entertainments for the amusement of his friends. But the idea of reviving the marionette kept growing. In New York, Mr. Sarg began by giving entertainments in Greenwich Village, and later, aided by Winthrop Ahmes, he presented entertainments in the Broadway theaters. Now his yearly marionette engagements are part of every stage season. Mr. Sarg takes an absorbed interest in the marionette. He considers it particularly significant that the puppet should return to world interest during and after the Great War. It is interesting that the marionette, which springs from the child heart in humanity, should reassert itself at this time, significant of the way the war has stripped us to the simplicities of life. Mr. Sarg employs a miniature stage upon which he utilizes striking stage effects. His dummies are 3 feet or less in height, and, as the scenery is built in proportion, an illusion of far greater size is obtained. If, by chance, a human hand appears, its seemingly abnormal size is startling. From a loft or scaffolding, hidden behind and above the stage, Mr. Sarg and his marionetteers manipulate the puppets. Each figure is suspended by a number of cords or threads from a short bar of wood. Each character is handled by one person, who moves about on the scaffolding with the supporting block of wood in one hand, while he or she gives movement to the strings with the other hand. This is identically the same way that the marionettes of the Middle Ages were handled. Nothing has changed except that the modern marionettes are far more elaborate as to mechanism. Some of the Sarg characters have as many as 24 strings, which, of course, require remarkable dexterity, as well as a delicate sense, upon the part of the puppeteer, of the dramatic and of graceful movement. We watched Thackeray's The Rose in the Ring from the Wings. Mr. Sarg, 2 masculine aides, and 3 young women, the latter in artistic overalls, corduroy tams, and bobbed hair a la Washington Square, moved about the tiny platform, putting Thackeray's famous characters through their mimic romance. The players, when not actively engaged in the drama, were carefully hung like butcher's shop fowl at one side. In each case, the dialogue was spoken by the puppeteer handling the particular mannequin in question. Mr. Sarg confided to us the difficulty of getting able puppeteers. "Women are best because their fingers seem most sensitive," he said, and he related the technical requirements of a marionette scenario. "Long sentences of dialogue are necessary," he explained, "because the spoken words must be long enough to cover the marionette's movement. A short bit of repartee would leave an action half finished. Every movement is conspicuous and must mean something directly attached to the furtherance of the story. And when lines are spoken, the character speaking the lines must be the only marionette in action. Otherwise, confusion would be caused by the audience. Out front, one centers one's interest naturally on the puppet in movement, and instantly connects the dialogue spoken off the stage with this particular character." End of section 2.